Christ is king, it's where we belong. Stay with the dream, don't lose your way. Right way's the fire that'll light the day. Keep it simple, let the moment arrive. 3-8 trap keeps the hope alive. Hold on tight till the signal's near. Right way's the trail, we're breaking through fear.
Good morning, fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for November 4th, 2025. Well, I hope everyone had a great afternoon, ready for another wild day in the market. We had quite a whipsaw yesterday, and this morning things seem to have changed here pretty dramatically, with futures down sharply. Let's get into what happened overnight. First off, Asian markets last night having, a bit of a sell-off. We saw Australia down 81.10 or 0.91% lower. Hong Kong fell 205.96 or 0.79% lower. We saw South Korea down 113 points or 2.37%. The Nikkei fell 914 or 1.74% lower. India was down 165.70 or 0.64% lower, and Shanghai down 1633 or 0.41% lower last night. If we take a look at European markets this morning, well, we're red across the board there as well, and decidedly so, with the DAX down 321.31 or 1.33% lower. FTSE is down 60.23 or 0.62% lower, and the CAC is down 97.13 or 1.20% lower. Looking at U.S. futures this morning, pretty bearish here today with a big gap down. Dow futures down 331 points, S&P 500 futures down 68 points, and NASDAQ futures down 324.75 here this morning. My goodness, what a reversal overnight. Trapping folks in long positions here this morning. They're going to feel some pinch today on this reversal. If we take a look at what's going on in bonds here this morning, bonds, a little bit of a pullback here today. The 2-year bond coming in at 3.57%. That's 3 ticks or 3/10 lower than we saw at the high point yesterday. 10-year bonds coming in at 4.09. That's 1/10 lower from yesterday. And the 30-year bond 4.67. Again, 1/10 lower than what we saw at the high point yesterday. If we take a look at what's happening to the dollar, interestingly enough, the dollar is still trying to move up. Dollar pushing higher by 15 cents today, trying to stretch up here and see if we can tag that resistance in the chart. Getting a pretty good stretch, and we may actually make it up there, moving in that upside trend. So watch that closely. New support on the dollar would be any pullback that comes back into that area to test as support. So keep an eye on the dollar. If we take a look at what's happening in those precious metals, having a little bit of bearishness this morning. Gold right now down $9.70 an ounce. Silver is lower by 50, almost 55, 58 cents. 58 cents lower at 47.47 an ounce. Copper is continuing lower from yesterday, down 13.5 cents in copper futures, and you can see the miners here pulling back pretty strongly. Palladium is down 25.90 an ounce at 1.78% lower, and platinum is down 23.50 or 1.49% lower. Taking a look at cryptos having a rough day yesterday, not improving this morning here at the moment. We've got Bitcoin down $2,113.70 a coin here. It is bouncing off the lows, however. Ether this morning down 74.47. Or 2.08% lower this morning, and Solana is down $3.68 or 2.16% lower here this morning. So feeling pretty rough here in cryptos at the moment. Now let's take a peek at oil. If we take a look at USO, you can see we are gapping lower here this morning. There's some oversupply concerns out there, I guess, in oil, and we're dropping 87 cents in oil futures to $60.17 a barrel. Brent crude's down 91 cents at $63.98, and natural gas is pulling back this morning after a good strong move yesterday, down a little over 5 cents here this morning, so feeling pretty rough. So what does all that mean for the day? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Tuesday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thanks so much for being here. Truly appreciate it on the, 35th day of the government shutdown, longest one in history. Let's take a look at these index charts and see if we can figure out how we might want to approach the market for today. Remember, we want to look at these charts for what they are, not for what we want them to be, and really focus in on the details of the charts. Well, first off, yesterday we had quite a whipsaw in here on the diamonds. We were pushing this around all over the place, and then this morning we ended up with this nasty gap down overnight. Seems kind of, one of the things that we see lately is we can't do much moving during the day because we don't have enough breadth to do it, and so we move overnight. Obviously, this is going to trap some folks into long trades. That's going to hurt a little bit today. Breaking down below this support here in the chart, and we've fallen right into this area here where we've got a gap between here and here. So if those bears were to continue to push, I could really see that gap potentially get filled here today in that chart. And if the bears were to continue to push on that, then that possibility that we could come back down here into this area of support in the chart. So watch that carefully. Now, if the bulls shake this off, and certainly every reason to believe what we've seen lately, we could shake off just about anything. If we hold this area of price support in here and bounce back up, well, then we can come back up and maybe test resistance of yesterday's candle close and perhaps that resistance here in the chart. So watch that carefully. We will come into contact with a little double whammy of resistance on the way back up. So consider that carefully. If you'll notice here in this push down, we've got a long ways to go to even come close to that 50-day moving average. We've got some pretty good areas of price support in here. So I'm hearing people talk, in the news that this is maybe the beginning of a correction or that kind of thing. We've got a lot more movement before we can do that. We haven't felt any pain yet, really to speak of here in the markets. So I don't think I would get involved in the correction talk just yet, unless we make some kind of lower high in these indexes. Let's take a look at our SPY. SPY gapping lower here this morning. We had tested down in this area and just had avoided it like it was a disease. We couldn't get down there. The bears didn't have any energy, and then all of a sudden overnight we gapped through that, and we have another situation here. If those bears were to have any additional inspiration here today, you can see that possibility that we can fill this pretty substantial gap here if those bears were to push on through to the downside. We may have just a little tiny lower high situation going on here after breaking that upside trend. So watch that carefully. A push down through this area here breaks some price support, and then we could see, you know, these next areas of price support be tested. So watch carefully here if those bears continue to push. Now, if the bulls can fight back, well, I would look for a retest up in this area. We'll retest that resistance here in the chart, and maybe even push right on up to retest that downtrend area in the chart. So watch that, or that uptrend resistance in the chart. If we can push back up through there, which lately, you know, we can push through almost anything and ignore almost anything, then we can have that big reversal here pushing right up through that resistance in the chart and heading back to blue sky highs. If we look at a QQQ chart, it's going to be very much the same. We had a giant gap underneath here that is yet to be filled. So if those bears were to have anything to say in here and push down, we've got a pretty substantial gap that could yet be filled in the chart, breaking that upside trend. And you'll notice beyond that, there's not much price support in that little spinning top in here. We could fill this gap as well if those bears were to really get going and coming back into some major support. So if those bears do take off here and find inspiration today, watch that carefully, because we may actually see some very big point moves in the QQQ to the downside. If the bulls, however, can shake this off and push this right back up, as we've seen in Qs, it doesn't really matter what happens in here, we just push back. We could bounce off of this upside trend in here and retest this resistance and maybe push right on through that resistance up into that area of the chart. And then, of course, complete reversal here on the day, we would have to push up through here and kind of catch those all-time highs. I wouldn't rule that out either, the way the market's been acting. And then if we look at IWM, this chart has been struggling and doesn't benefit from the big tech giants. And as you can see, we've been moving down in this chart this morning, breaking below this support that we have held so far. So if the bears can continue to find inspiration here, you can see we've got a lot of tails right in here kind of floating in this mid-air area of the chart. If that were to fail right in here, I would look for a retest of this area of price support across here, and then possibly even testing down below that big old black candle here. Watch that carefully if that really gets going here on the day. But if those bulls can push back, I would look for a pushback up in here to retest this downtrend and price resistance area in the chart, and possibly even stretch a little bit higher, coming back up into this area of the chart. Unfortunately, IWM has really got some concerns starting to form here, and if we were to pop back up in here any place and then see failure, that could constitute that lower high here in IWM. Let's take a look at our VIX. Now, yesterday our VIX was all over the place. We had really popped up on that good strong push down, popped up in here, and then by the end of the day, when we rallied about halfway back, we felt like there was no fear in the market again and pushing it back down, and that's going to trap a lot of those folks into those trades here this morning with this gap down. So watch that carefully here. This area of price support could be critical, and I'm guessing what we're going to see is the gap, or not the gap, but the VIX move higher here today on this gap down, raising some concerns here and really picking things up. If we break above this area here, that could be a little bit of fear could really start to compound here in the market if we start breaking back above 20 handles in the VIX. Watch those bid-ask spreads if you're an option trader. They're already wide. This isn't going to improve anything, so be careful here on your trading. Let's take a look at our T21-22, the 4-week new high, new low ratio. And if there's any good news in this today, would be that this big gap down here this morning could push us down here into that bearish reversal zone. Bullish reversal zone. If we push down into there, that gives us some hope of a pullback or pushback to the upside. Now, remember, we haven't been down here for so long and able to hold down here for so long that we still have big significant sell-offs that could happen. So keep that in mind, and remember, we could linger down here a little bit, and we haven't seen that for a while here in the market. It's just an immediate rush back to the upside, and I'm going to give kind of a nod to the possibility of an immediate rush back to the upside, just simply because we're embroiled in one of the biggest weeks of earnings numbers out there, and the hype has just been incredible on these. So watch that carefully here. Maybe sentiment shifts today, and I've been warning about that, to stay with the upside trend until the sentiment shifts, and I said it should happen suddenly. If you saw my note from yesterday, that it could happen suddenly. So watch that carefully. Let's take a look at our T2108. This has been a concern for a long time. As we've been making record highs, we've been seeing more and more stocks declining. And although we've been celebrating the big tech giants that have been pushing us to new records and really pushing into just a handful of trades, well, the majority of the market has been suffering. So as you can see, we've got T2108. At one point, we were below 30% here yesterday on that selling. My guess is we're going to gap well below 30% here this morning in T2108. So watch that carefully. We've got a little area of support here down about in the mid-20s. So watch that carefully. If we push down through into here, that could be painful. And remember, we can go a lot lower in T2108 if those bears have the energy to do so, which they just haven't had here for a long time. T2107, percentage of stocks above the 200-day moving average, that also slipped here yesterday. We dropped below 45%, but we still haven't locked out this recent low here in the chart and dropping below there. I think that's going to be handled first thing here this morning, a push on lower. So watch that carefully as we push down. We do have some pretty good support around 40% of the stocks above the 200-day. Get some pretty good price action in there on that, and maybe even down toward 35%. There's some good support if those bears were to really push in that this morning. And our T2101, well, T2101 was really interesting yesterday. As the selling took off, the breadth actually increased. As the selling took off, as soon, in fact, let me show you the intraday candle here. The selling was up here at the top as we were selling off in the market. The bears were gaining breadth, and then as soon as we rallied back up, the breadth came down. We were pulling back on that buying. So something was afoot in here. Maybe there was rotation by institutions or something that was unnoticeable in the dark pool. I don't know, but pretty nasty reversal here this morning. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here for today. Our economic calendar, well, who knows what we're going to actually get and what we're not going to get, but we've got Bauman speaking here early this morning. International trading goods numbers will be out. Consensus is looking for a negative 64.1 billion, so keep an eye on that. And then we've got a factory orders number looking for a 0.2 on factory orders. Watch that. And a job openings report. So keep an eye on this. They're looking for 7.3 million, a little improvement in those job openings. So watch that carefully here. We've got some bond announcements and a bond auction here for today. Looking forward into Wednesday, mortgage applications. We're going to get an ADP report, Treasury refunding announcement. We've got several bond announcements, a PMI number, ISM number, and a petroleum status number in there, and of course some bond auctions as well. So keep an eye on that. Let's take a look at our earnings calendar here today, and boy, it's a whopper. We've got a lot of earnings in here. Whoops, looks like I need to do a little improving there. And by the way, I made a mistake yesterday in here, and I do apologize for that mistake. I had crossed two lists, I guess, and I had ADM in here. Not ADM. Why can't I say I'm having a senior moment, I guess. AMD in here as after the bell yesterday. That was my mistake, so I do apologize. Here today, though, we've got Archer Daniels in there. I must have looked at that and said ADM. And we've got quite a few reports here today going along, and then this afternoon we're going to get things like Amgen and Angie is in there. We've got ANAT reporting, CPNG is in here, so a lot of reports. Take a screenshot because there is just no way I can cover all of these during the video. We would be here until tomorrow morning, so grab a screenshot of those. And you know what, it only gets busier all the way into Thursday with over 300 reporting on Thursday, so watch that here. It's going to be a busy week of earnings, so grab a screenshot of that if you're interested. Let's take a look at a few stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if you could do me that quick favor, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube and also click that bell icon when it pops up, so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful to your day, if you could do me that favor, click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment. I truly appreciate the kind support for the effort of putting these videos out. It obviously takes quite a bit of time, and it's that commitment that I make of I'm up at 5 a.m. Every morning at my desk starting to put this together. So I truly appreciate that kind support of everyone who appreciates the work. Thank you so much. Let's take a look at some of these charts that could be setting up for today. Remember, they're not recommendations to buy or sell any security. As a matter of fact, today we're going to have to be pretty careful because a lot of these could reverse here this morning. So kind of keep that in mind. I would be careful about chasing anything here today. I would also be careful with having reactionary trading coming in to suddenly flip a bearish, because we could whipsaw here today as well. So be very, very careful. Let's take a look at some of these stocks that could be setting up. Bank of America continuing to look really good in here, holding pretty solidly in here, and if we can get a little bit of bullish action coming in here, I really see that possibility. Bank of America could jump on through to the upside. We've been seeing JP Morgan pushed back above this downtrend area here in the chart. We ran into some price resistance yesterday, pulling back, but I think as long as JP Morgan can hold that higher low in here, we may see that opportunity for that to push on through to the upside. And there are certainly others in here like Citibank. Citibank setting up after breaking that downtrend, starting that little uptrending move here in the chart. That's definitely worth paying attention to, and that may just find its way on through to the upside as well. So keep an eye on some of those that are trying to hang in the chart. However, on the other side, boy, take a look at BlackRock. Woof. That's fallen all apart in here. Any rally back up, I think, could set up a potential short. So just keep in mind, this is going to be a stock picker's market. You're going to have to look at the price action very carefully in your trades and try to avoid the chase. Even in this, you don't want to chase that down now. Wait for it to rally, wait for it to consolidate before you look for that next move in the chart. Take a look at stocks like AMAT. AMAT hanging in here, looking pretty good. Nice little resting consolidation in here. Obviously, probably going to catch a little bit of selling in here on the day, but if that selling were to come in here, that may just set up that next opportunity for that push to the upside. Won't report until the 13th, so I would look for that to maybe hold up in here. How about Datadog? Datadog started to look a little bit concerning in here, but came right back up through that resistance here in the chart. It is going to report on the 6th, unfortunately, which will probably mess up a perfectly good chart. But watch that carefully in here. We've got this little tiny uptrend. We popped up in here, pulled back. I think there's an opportunity that could be setting up in here. Keep an eye on that. Take a look at some of these other stocks out here. Qualcomm, this resting consolidation in here after that big push. Now, it may have to rest a little bit longer in here, but that's looking pretty decent in here. All we need is a little bit of a push, and that might pop on through here to the upside. Worth paying attention to. And if you're like me, if you kind of like to look for stocks that have been kind of beaten down, breaking big basing patterns here and things like that are something I'd like to watch. So that means I'm liking what's happening here in UPS. A nice little pop on earnings, resting back toward the trend. Give it a little bit more time, let it set its pattern in here, wait for that trade. But I think UPS might be coming around, and I would have to say the same here for FedEx. After breaking through this resistance here to the upside in that chart, little resting consolidation here, and I would look for that next potential move higher here. Looking pretty good overall. Now, I've been keeping an eye on this EXE, and I don't know what happened in this. There may have been some news on this, but this reported earnings, and it kind of broke this upside trend. And then, my goodness, it just came ripping back with a vengeance yesterday. So watch this right through here. If it can hold the high, this is being a double bottom pattern. If it can hold that mid-range in here, hold in that area and rest for just a little bit, I would look for that opportunity maybe for EXE to push on through to the upside. Now, this is a natural gas play. And we've got so much infrastructure being built and coming online on the southern border of the country for liquefied natural gas facilities, and EXE is very well positioned for supplying those with natural gas, and they have the capacity too. So watch that carefully here, and EXE may have some interesting opportunities in that chart. Continue to pay attention here to GE. I really like the way GE is holding in here. We just need a little bit of bullishness, and I think that could push on through to the upside. This IoT just kept alerting for me yesterday. It popped through, pulled back, popped through, pulled back all day long yesterday. But here again, there's one of those stocks that's kind of building this basing pattern in here. If we can get a little bit of bullishness in here, we might see that push on through to the upside. Also, in a market reversal like this, we could see a bit of a rush back to more defensive type trades in here. Take a look at Walmart. Walmart reversed off of this bottom yesterday, trying to push up. This is in that defensive sector area here, and I don't know what was going on in retail yesterday, but we saw a little bit of bounce coming up in some of the retail stocks, and one of the members in Right Way Options brought up Macy's, and wow, what a beautiful chart there in Macy's. Keep an eye on that. You know, that's one of the great benefits of being part of a trading room. It's not the idiot on the mic, you know, me. It is all of the trained eyes in the room, giving you an opportunity to find so many more potential trade ideas because of everyone's activity in the market. So if you haven't considered coming on over here to Right Way Options, we've had a really good year, and we'd love to have you aboard in Right Way Options. There are some links that will take you back to the website in the description of the video if you have some interest there. Let's take a look at a few others in here. I've been keeping an eye on oil. This pullback this morning in oil might have a negative impact on this. You can see I've got an alert in here. We did alert in that area. Maybe this little W formation in here just needs a little bit of rest to hold this price support in there, and then maybe we can see that push on through to the upside. Keep an eye on oil. You might want to also keep an eye on UNG trying to come up out of that bottom as well here in that chart. Keep an eye on First Solar. First Solar remaining very strong. Might need a little bit of rest. We've got a good support in here on that chart. Just a little bit of rest, a little bit of consolidation in here, and that might find that way right on through to the upside. Worth paying attention to. And you might want to keep an eye. I saw things like Valero. Come on. There we go. Valero setting up a beautiful pattern here in the chart, banging its head against this resistance. All we need is a little bit of a push. With today's oil, that might be a bit of a big ask, but if that can find that bullish energy in here, couldn't rule out the possibility that could come back around and push right on through to the upside. So there's a few stocks for you to pay attention to. Remember, we have a high probability of some big point moves and some big whipsaws. So make sure you're planning very, very carefully. Try not to be reactionary. Try not to race into trades blindly in this knee-jerk reaction trading that we've seen here, because that can really chop up an account. Trade wisely. Have a great day. I'll see you back here bright and early Wednesday morning. I wish you all the best.
Black and white candles, my stars in the dark. Price is my king, got that fire and spark. Right Way's my ranch on the trader's trail. Trading with heart where the profits prevail.